So you'd like to embark on the journey of progressing your chess ELO from 1000 to 1400. Well, you've come to the right place because in this video, I'm going to give you a chess study plan to do just that. This is part of a series where I break down study plans for different rating ranges, so feel free to check out the other videos linked in the description. There'll be a whole playlist going up above 1800. A little bit about me. I'm Stanley. I've been playing chess since I was 7 years old. I am currently around 1800 on chess.com Rapid. I've played in over-the-board tournaments. I go to chess clubs every now and then, so I really love the game, and why not take chess advice from a guy wearing a really cool chess t-shirt that he got for Christmas? All right, let's hop into it. What are the most important things to focus on at this rating level to improve your chess as efficiently as we can? Well, the first thing is going to be a little bit painfully obvious, but it's worth saying. You need to be playing and analyzing your games as much as humanly possible. We've all heard the phrase practice makes perfect, and chess is no exception. I mean, obviously, if you want to get better at the game, you have to play it and analyze your games so that you can fix your mistakes in your future games. I really want you to be playing as many games as you can, but I don't want you sacrificing the quality of those games, which means that I don't want you wasting a bunch of time playing 10 million blitz and bullet games, creating bad habits and just losing on time or getting an adrenaline rush from beating your opponent on time, because that's not really going to help your internal chess playing ability. Instead, you should probably play maybe some less games, but at longer time formats. This means maybe 15 minutes plus 10-second increment, or maybe the occasional 30 or 60-minute game, so you really get to sit down, calculate, and interpret the position, and not make silly mistakes and blunders just because you played a move in 5 seconds when you had 30 minutes on the clock, right? So take your time in these games, really sit with the position, get a feel for it, and you'll remember it much better in the future. And a bonus of playing a longer time format is it makes the analysis much easier. When you hop into game review or just looking at it with a regular engine, then it is much easier to get insights from that and to analyze the positions afterward if you spent a lot of time thinking about them during the game, because you already know what's going on. You know what was going on in your head, what lines you calculated, maybe what mistakes you thought your opponent made, but you didn't know how to capitalize on correctly. Well, now is the time to start looking into that and see how you can improve upon that in the future. This is getting a bit more technical and a bit more advanced than our previous rating range of 600 to 1000 ELO. That was mainly focusing on preventing blunders and improving our tactical vision, which is still very important at this stage, because I can probably guess that if you're within 1000 to 1400, you're still blundering pieces and exchanges and forks fairly frequently. Now, that's not to judge. I still do it too, so do grandmasters, but the frequency of it is going to dwindle over time as we climb up that rating ladder. In order to really improve our tactical vision and minimize the blunders in our games at this point, we still have to be doing as many puzzles as possible and start to look for tactical themes in your games as well. When practicing and solving puzzles, we really need to make sure we have the basics down. So on Puzzle Rush, we got to get through those first 10 or 15 puzzles without too much difficulty here. If we're still struggling and we're taking, 5-10 minutes on the third puzzle, well, that's just a sign we need to do more of them, right? So let's really practice our puzzles, solve them every day if you can. You get a free Puzzle Rush on chess.com every day, and you can really drill these and make sure that you can clearly see a mate in one, or you can see a knight fork, or a pin, or a discovered attack, or skewer, or all of these things. We need to be very familiar with them so that we can start setting them up in our games, preventing our opponent from getting us with them, and also start to improve our calculation and maybe try to see these tactical patterns 1 or 2 moves ahead so we can start setting them up. Now, I don't want you setting them up and making one-move threats that don't actually amount to anything substantial, and they're just to, make the threat if your opponent can easily parry it. Now, in the previous rating range at the below 1000 level, it might have been okay, let's move the knight here, we're threatening a fork, maybe our opponent won't see it. But as we get stronger and stronger, our opponents are probably going to see those one-move threats, so we have to start asking ourselves more questions before we make our moves. Whenever your opponent makes a move, I need you to ask yourself, why did they make that move? Are they threatening anything? Am I hanging a piece right now and I need to defend it or move it? These are really important things you need to consider every time an opponent makes a move, and I mean every time. This is how we prevent blunders. And before you make a move, you need to always ask yourself, is this hanging a piece? Is this just a one-move threat that my opponent can easily parry? Is this check actually going to benefit me, or am I just giving it because it's a check? These are really good questions as well. Building up your habits and lists of questions that you ask yourself at different phases throughout the game is good too, because it helps you create the flow from the opening to the middle game to the end game, which is a really tough thing to develop. In the opening, we need to make sure, are we taking control of the center or fighting for the center with our pawns? Are we developing our pieces to active squares, ideally knights before bishops to support our central pawns? And when we develop our bishops, maybe we can give a check if it's beneficial, but not just for the aesthetic of giving a check. We want to defend our center, get to active squares, and create threats if we can. We don't want to move pieces more than once in the opening if we can avoid it, because that just wastes time. We need to castle our king as soon as possible and make sure that we get our rooks to the open files as we transition into the middle game. So as we get into the middle game, it's a different set of questions. Are our rooks being brought out into the center or to open files? Am I creating active pawn breaks in the center to open up lines of attack to my opponent? Or if they're trying to attack me, am I acknowledging their threats and deciding whether they are actually dangerous and then I need to defend against them? Or are they nonsense and I can go about my own plan? Am I gaining space? Am I creating luft for my king? We start to approach the endgame as we trade pieces. When you trade pieces, ask yourself, is that good or bad? What happens after that trade is made? If the position is closed and I'm trading a bishop for my opponent's knight, that might be good because the position is closed and I don't see it opening anytime soon. Maybe I want to keep my knights to bounce around all the pawns and hop over the structure. The inverse could be true. If the position is wide open and there's only a few pawns on the board, then I probably would love to keep my bishop pair, and I'm going to ask myself, do I really want to exchange my really good bishop for my opponent's bad knight? Probably not. And as we approach the endgame, as pieces get traded, the queens fall off the board, a different set of questions needs to be asked. You need to ask, can I create any passed pawns? Can I activate my king so that I have another piece that's in play? Because the king is less likely to get checkmated in the endgame. It's possible, but less likely. So you do want to activate your king once there's only maybe a rook or a couple bishops or something like that on the board, and get it into play, try to create a passed pawn. How can I push my pawns up the board and promote to a queen? Now, I know I just went on a long tangent about questions that you can ask during a game, and there are millions more in a million different types of positions that you should probably familiarize yourself with and create a portfolio or a repertoire of sorts in your brain so you can start asking these different questions to help evaluate your decisions that you have to make. And another way to know what types of questions to ask yourself in any given position is by studying positional chess. Now, I don't need you to be an expert in every single variation and every single pawn structure that exists, but knowing the basics is going to be really important here. It will keep you from playing nonsensical moves that don't fit the position, and you'll actually kind of have an idea as you flow throughout the game what moves may make sense or feel natural in a way, and what moves just don't make much sense at all. Like if all the play is going on the king side, then pushing a pawn one square on the queen side, if it doesn't do anything else, well, that's probably a waste of a move. But if you're familiar with the idea of a rook lift, and you can easily get your rook to your third rank to attack your opponent's king, and there's not much he can do about it, well, then that's a pretty good positional thing to know, and you knew to play the moves because you asked yourself, how can I attack my opponent even further since I have control of the center and my opponent doesn't have very many defenders around his king? That probably means I want to attack. Oh, I see my rook can get involved. Let's see if I can create this rook lift. All while using your enhanced tactical vision that you've gained from continuing to solve puzzles all this while, so you don't blunder along the way, of course. What else should we be studying at this playing strength? Well, everybody's favorite topic, of course, the endgame. Yeah, I know everyone's favorite is the opening, but we'll get there, but you do need to learn about the endgame. Looking into king and pawn endgames is a great place to start because it's really just king, king, and pawn. Can't get simpler than that, right? So learn all of that. Learn opposition, whether a king and pawn endgame is won or drawn, and flank pawn positions as well. Those are more likely to be drawn than a non-flank pawn, right? A or H. I would encourage you to explore other endgame ideas and principles as well. Now, you don't need to go super in depth to all the Lucina and Philidor and all of that, but it is good to learn the principles. So I would head on to YouTube and look up endgame videos, or onto chess.com, do a free lesson every day on endgame principles, do the drills so you can really nail down these endgame principles. Okay, I did promise we would get to the openings, and here we are. What openings should I be studying, and how should I improve my openings in my current playing strength? Well, please don't hate me, but at 1,000 to 1,400, you still don't need a ton of opening theory. I know, it hurts. Now, a lot of people may disagree, and I know opening theory is good to learn to an extent, but you don't need to spend all of your time memorizing variation after variation, because your opponents are likely not going to play the main lines, and you're not going to get those positions. And also, just memorizing the moves doesn't mean you understand the ideas of the opening and the plans that result into the middle game. So in order to create a better understanding of your playing game as a whole, you should learn opening ideas within the openings that you play. I assume at this point you have some favorite openings that you like to play, so feel free to stick with those. I would avoid gambits, though, at least unsound ones. Something like the Evans Gambit, for example, is a good opening gambit because it's actually working towards opening principles like quick development and taking advantage of the center and your opponent's lack of development and poor piece coordination. These are great things to create an attack and work on that, but random gambits that just hope for tricks that your opponent's going to blunder some fork or some smother mate or something like that, you know, you may win a game here and there pretty quickly and it's going to feel good, but as far as actual playing strength, it may not be that helpful. Because once you get into the middle game, you're on your own. So if you don't know the ideas or principles of the middle game, positional understanding, endgame ideas, then it might not go so well, even if you got the plus 0.5 advantage out of the opening that your openings course gave you. Not to hate on openings courses, they're great to have, and it may be worth getting a beginner-friendly one to get general ideas and know what variations can arise out of an opening, like the exchange versus the advanced variations. That can be good, but again, just learn the ideas, go from there. To recap everything, in order to get to 1,400 ELO from 1,000, we need to do a lot of the same stuff we were doing before, but a bit more technical and a bit more detailed. So we need to learn some opening theory and know what openings we play, the ideas behind them, the positions that result, and what mistakes we made in previous games we played those openings. We get that by analyzing our games. We're going to go much more in depth now with that. We're going to make sure we're playing longer time formats so we get a better understanding of the position and we're not just making moves because we have no time. We're going to learn more positional ideas, get better at calculating and seeing 1, 2, maybe 3 move combinations and trying to evaluate whether a trade is good for you or not, or whether a move makes positional sense. If the end game arises, then we need to know the general ideas there as well. And there's no one specific route to getting where you need to go in chess. It's going to be your journey and your exploration of what interests you, and you'll start to learn as long as you spend time towards it. You'll start to learn what's working, what's not, what you like, what is boring to you, but maybe you actually need to spend time on in order to improve. You'll get a feeling for this as you spend more time with the 64 squares. So if you made it to the end of this video, just want to thank you as always. It does mean a lot to me. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did like the video, and have a great day.